Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Well, hi there. Welcome back to another Put It Into Practice episode. This week, I'm answering another listener question, and that question is porn addiction an epidemic? And before I dive into answering that question, I'm going to give you a little bit of education and information on porn addiction, as well as touch on sexual abuse and porn addiction. Okay. Don't forget, you can message me over on Instagram, even Facebook, or feel free to send me an email, which is lisa@lisamustard.com, to ask me a question about therapy, mental health, relationships, and I'll answer your question on an upcoming episode. Because chances are, if you're wondering about it, lots of other people out there are wondering about it too. So don't be afraid to send me an email or message with a question. And of course, I will answer your question anonymously. Now, don't forget, I am not monitoring my DMs or emails 24/7. So if you are in crisis, you want to text or call 988, which is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and you'll get some really good support from them. All right. Now, I don't think we talk about this topic enough, and it is a timely question because I actually have an upcoming interview with a therapist who specializes in sex and porn addiction. So stay tuned. That episode will drop sometime in February. All right. But first, what is porn addiction, also known as compulsive pornography use? It's characterized by an excessive use of pornography that interferes with an individual's daily life. However, it is not recognized as a standalone addiction disorder by the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association, or the WHO, the World Health Organization. And the diagnosis of pornography addiction is actually kind of controversial in the therapy world, and not all therapists will acknowledge it. And moreover, researchers have presented various different models of the signs and symptoms. Some healthcare professionals and counselors believe that pornography in itself isn't problematic, but that it has the potential to become so depending on the person's viewpoint or their partners. Some indications that pornography may be causing a problem include a person's sex life becomes less satisfying. Pornography causes relationship issues or makes a person feel less satisfied with their partner, or a person engages in risky behavior to view porn, such as doing so at work. Some other signs that a person may be developing an unhealthy relationship with porn include that they ignore other responsibilities to view pornography. They view progressively more extreme pornography to get the same release that less extreme porn once offered. And they feel frustrated or ashamed after viewing porn, but continue to do so. They really want to stop using porn, but feel unable to do that. They spend large sums of money on pornography, possibly at the expense of daily or family necessities. And they use pornography to cope with sadness, anxiety, insomnia, or some other mental health issue. Okay, so what is an addiction? An addiction is more than just an intense interest in something. It is a medical condition that changes the brain and the body and causes the person to feel compelled to continue using a substance or partaking in an activity, even when doing so may cause them harm. Most research into addiction suggests that it activates regions in the brain associated with motivation and reward. Specifically, addiction alters the body's dopamine system. And when a person with addiction initially uses the substance or engages in the behavior, they receive an intense rush of dopamine, causing feelings of pleasure and reward. And over time, their body may produce less dopamine and rely on the substance or behavior to feel that dopamine rush. And sex can be a highly rewarding behavior in terms of dopamine. Using porn may also activate the dopamine system, potentially leading to addiction. And addiction affects other aspects of the brain as well, steadily changing it and making it increasingly difficult for the person to avoid the addictive substance or behavior. Now, it's really important to note that not all people who consume porn have an addiction, and some people may use it in a healthy way. And the line between healthy and excessive use can be different for each person, and it's a matter of personal preferences. People may use porn as a coping skill for a variety of reasons, and some of those reasons include stress relief. Porn can provide a temporary escape from stressors in everyday life. Viewing porn can be a form of self-soothing and can help to temporarily reduce feelings of anxiety or tension. It can also be used for emotional regulation. Porn can provide a way to regulate emotions, particularly in the cases of emotional or sexual frustration. People may use porn as a way to cope with feelings of loneliness, boredom, or sadness. Mood enhancement. So, viewing porn can release chemicals in the brain, such as dopamine, which can lead to feelings of pleasure and euphoria. And these feelings can be addictive, and people may turn to porn as a way to self medicate and improve their mood. Lack of social support. People who feel isolated or disconnected from others may use porn as a way to cope with feelings of loneliness. And one more, distorted beliefs. Some people may have misconceptions about sex and relationships and may turn to porn as a way to learn about sexuality or to fulfill unmet sexual needs. Now, using porn as a coping skill can definitely become problematic when it interferes with daily life, leading to negative consequences such as relationship problems, difficulty with sexual function, and difficulty with work or school. And that is when you know that it's time to talk to a professional. I think it's important to talk about sexual abuse in porn, so I'm going to chat just a little bit about that. Research suggests that people who have been sexually abused may be at a higher risk of developing compulsive pornography use. And some possible reasons for this include trauma. People who have been sexually abused may turn to pornography as a way to cope with the trauma they have experienced. And viewing porn can provide a temporary escape from memories and emotions related to the abuse. Emotional regulation, where people who have been sexually abused may use porn to regulate their emotions. Pornography can provide a way to cope with feelings of depression, anxiety, or shame associated with the abuse.
Are you thinking of starting a podcast this year? Or perhaps you're a seasoned podcaster and you're looking for someone to take the podcast production off your plate. If so, we are currently taking on new clients and would love to be your production partner of choice. My name is Chelsea Weaver, and I am the owner of Chelsea Weaver Podcasting. I offer podcast startup packages, audio and video editing, plus show notes, graphics, and reels. So consider us a one-stop shop for all your podcast needs. A little bit about me, I have over 5+ years of experience in audio and video production. I am an Army veteran who served in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. I partner with other female veterans who are also experienced in podcast production and social media services. We'd love to chat with you about your podcasting and social media needs and can be reached at chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. That's CHELSEAWEAVER podcasting.com.
Now, once again, distorted beliefs come up. People who have been sexually abused may develop distorted beliefs about sexuality and relationships and may turn to porn as a way to understand these concepts. And they might have difficulty with intimacy. So people who have been sexually abused may have difficulty with intimacy and may use porn as a way to avoid real life relationships. Not all people who have been sexually abused will develop compulsive porn use. And that is true for the opposite. Not all people who struggle with compulsive pornography use have been sexually abused. So another good question to ask is early exposure to porn a form of sexual trauma? So the effects of early exposure to pornography can vary widely depending on the individual and their unique circumstances. And it's important to consider the context and the person's overall well-being when assessing whether it has been traumatic. For some people, early exposure to porn may be a form of sexual trauma. Now, this can be the case if the material is violent or degrading, or if the person feels coerced or pressured into viewing it. Additionally, if a person is exposed to porn at a very young age, before they have developed an understanding of sexuality and healthy relationships, it can be confusing and distressing for them. And this can lead to a distorted view of sexuality and negative impacts on their emotional and psychological well-being. However, it's important to note that not everyone who is exposed to porn at an early age will experience it as traumatic. For example, if a person discovers pornography on their own and is able to view it in the context of curiosity or experimentation, it may not be traumatic for them. Now, there is no consensus in the scientific community on whether pornography itself is inherently harmful, and some studies suggest that consuming porn can lead to negative effects on attitudes toward women, sexual behaviors, and relationships, while others find that it has no effect or even a positive effect on attitudes and behaviors. Now, if a person has experienced any form of sexual trauma, it's important that they seek professional help. They can benefit from therapy to help them process and understand their experiences and develop coping mechanisms for dealing with any lingering effects. And additionally, it's important for people who have been exposed to traumatic material to have accurate information about sexuality and healthy relationships in order to counteract. Okay, so now that I've shared what porn addiction is, as well as sexual abuse and porn, the question that originally was asked was, is porn addiction an epidemic? So, a 2019 study suggests that the prevalence of this disorder may be about 3 to 6%. However, the rates have been difficult to determine due to a lack of formal classification. So, we have two sides of the argument. The argument for porn addiction being an epidemic is that the easy accessibility of internet porn has made it increasingly easy for people to develop compulsive habits. Porn can be accessed at any time, and with the anonymity of the internet, people may feel more comfortable indulging in excessive use without fear of judgment. Studies have shown that excessive use of porn can lead to a range of negative consequences, such as erectile dysfunction, relationship problems, and decreased satisfaction with sex. And the number of people seeking treatment for porn addiction has been increasing in recent years, which suggests that the problem is becoming more prevalent. Now, the argument against porn addiction being an epidemic includes the concept of porn addiction is not a widely accepted medical diagnosis, and it's not included in the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is commonly known as the DSM-5, or the International Classification of Diseases, the ICD 11. Lack of research on the prevalence of porn addiction and the criteria used to define it makes it difficult to determine whether it is truly an epidemic. And not all people who consume porn have an addiction, and some people may use it in a healthy way. It's really a matter of individual and personal preferences. So, the negative consequences of excessive porn use could also be attributed to other underlying issues, such as depression or anxiety, rather than addiction. So, while there is a growing concern about the negative consequences of compulsive porn use, more research is needed to determine if it truly is an epidemic. Okay, so I want to point out the takeaways from this episode. So it may be a good idea to see a therapist if pornography is causing you relationship problems. A person feels guilty about their pornography use. A person wants to cut down on their pornography use but feels unable to do so. And remember, therapists hold varying views on pornography, and some may believe that all pornography is harmful, and while others may think that it is never addictive. Anyone seeking treatment should choose a therapist whose values align with their own. Interview the therapist about their beliefs and philosophy before committing to treatment. I'm going to put a resource in the show notes, which will give you a list of certified sex therapists and counselors who endorse sex positive treatment and research based support. So if you're looking for someone who works specifically in porn or sex addiction, definitely check out this link. Now, don't forget, viewing pornography excessively can cause serious problems, whether or not it is addictive in the traditional medical sense. And although there is disagreement about the causes of porn addiction, treatment usually involves addressing an underlying issue, which could relate to mental health. That's really important, I think. And for some people, simple lifestyle changes can help. So I want to thank the listener that sent me this question. I think it's a really great question and something that I don't see discussed enough, honestly. I've worked with people dealing with porn addiction in the past, and I want to encourage anyone who is struggling to get support and help. And there are many therapists out there who are well trained in this issue and can help you get your life back on track from porn. And if you're needing resources to find a therapist, like I said, be sure to see the show notes. Thanks, you guys, for letting me into your earbuds again this week. I hope you found value in this episode. And if you know someone who may benefit from hearing about this topic, be sure to send them the link to listen. And don't forget, if you have a question about therapy, mental health, relationships, really anything mental health related, emotional health related, send me an email, send me a message on social media. Take care, friends. Don't forget, you guys, the therapy show with Lisa Mustard and the information provided by me is solely intended for informational and entertainment purposes and is not a substitute for advice, diagnosis, or treatment regarding medical or mental health conditions. Although I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, the views expressed on the show or on the podcast or any related content should not be taken for medical or psychiatric advice. Always consult your physician before making any decisions related to your physical or mental health. These Put It Into Practice episodes are meant to be education and not treatment. Hey guys, before we end this episode, if you are liking my content, if you're liking my podcast, be sure to go over and leave me a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you are up for it, I'd love it if you left me a review as well. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.